I'm John Cantley, and today we're in the city of Kobani on the Syrian-Turkish border. That is, in fact, Turkey right behind me, and we are here in the heart of the so-called PKK safe zone, which is now controlled entirely by the Islamic State.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch, and welcome too to a new frontier in the propaganda war. As you may have guessed, that video from the Syrian front line was shot and scripted by Islamic State. But the reporter was a British journalist, John Cantley, who has worked for The Sun and Sunday Times and has been held hostage by ISIS since 2012.
Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking he's only doing this because he's a prisoner. He's got a gun at his head and he's being forced to do this, right? Well, it's true. I am a prisoner. That I cannot deny.
Cantley was first kidnapped in July 2012, but rescued soon after by the Free Syrian Army. He then returned to the war zone a few months later, only to be kidnapped again. This time with American journalist James Foley, whose brutal beheading was filmed by ISIS in August. Interviewed recently in Islamic State's glossy propaganda magazine, Cantley admitted he's a dead man walking.
I'm nobody going nowhere. I've had to watch as James, Stephen Sotloff, David Haynes and Alan Henning walked out of the door one every 2 weeks since August the 18th, never to return, knowing they were going to be killed and going to their deaths. I've had to become pretty tough inside, sometimes just to get through each day.
Cantley's latest video is the first to use him as a captive reporter, and it's perhaps the most potent because it brings us what he claims is news from Kobani, but with a different spin on the battle to the one we've been getting.
Now, the Western media, and I can't see any of their journalists here in the city of Kobani, have been saying recently that the Islamic State are on the retreat.
Cantley cites a number of recent reports, including the BBC and the International Business Times, which have suggested that Islamic State is losing ground and the Kurds and Western airstrikes are winning the fight.
But the point is, from where I'm standing right now, I can see large swathes of the city. I can even see the Turkish flag behind me. And all I've seen here in the city of Kobani is Mujahideen. There are no YPG, PKK or Peshmerga in sight, just a large number of Islamic State Mujahideen. And they are definitely not on the run.
We can't say how much truth there is in the ISIS version. But the video opens with aerial shots, apparently taken from an ISIS drone, itself a revelation, which show little heavy fighting. So, is it actually genuine? According to The Independent's Patrick Coburn, a Middle East reporter with 35 years' experience,
there is no doubt that the film was taken in Kobani.
Coburn also believes the message has hit its target.
Whatever the degree of coercion under which Mr. Cantley is reporting, the video will have been seen by millions around the world and is convincing evidence that ISIS, if it has not won the battle for Kobani, has not yet lost it.
It's not hard to imagine why Cantley is dancing a jig for people who have murdered his cellmates. As journalist Joanna Parashuk, who is documenting the conflict in Syria, told Media Watch,
he is useful to ISIS now, and that means they are less likely to kill him just yet. The longer he can stay alive, the more chance there is of him being rescued or released.
And as Parashuk also observes, it's easy to see why ISIS are using him.
He's a professional journalist who can put their messages into the language of the Western media, which makes it both much more consumable for a Western audience and also more plausible.
But why is such propaganda so valuable? And who is it aimed at? Well, partly at you and me. It's designed to weaken the West's appetite for war and shake our trust in what independent reporters who can't get to the front line are telling us. But as the New York Times observed, it's also targeted at potential Islamic State fighters.
The overriding point is that success breeds success,
said Emil Narkley, a former CIA analyst.
The perception of quick victories in territory and weapons and bases means they don't need to try hard to recruit.
At the start of this year, ISIS had some 5,000 fighters in its ranks. But since then, numbers have swollen to nearer 30,000. According to the UN Security Council, around half of these are foreigners, with some young Western Muslims who are targeted with slick propaganda videos made for them.
And I deliver this message to you, especially the people of Australia.
My name is Abu Muslim. I'm your brother in Islam here in Syria. I originally come from Canada.
O you who believe, answer the call of Allah and His Messenger when He calls you to what gives you life.
Videos like those, and propaganda on Twitter and Instagram, are causing concern to ISIS's many enemies. Retired US General John Allen, who is drumming up international support for the fight, said last week that we need an information coalition as much as military action.
It is only when we contest ISIL's presence online, deny the legitimacy of the message it sends to vulnerable young people, it is only then that ISIL will truly be defeated.
And Australian terror expert David Kilcullen agrees, albeit in rather blunter terms.
The online battle, the need to expose ISIS for what it is, a band of merciless, nihilistic, hyper-violent exterminators, is clearly important. I think the most important thing, though, is to destroy the Islamic State on the ground.
And that brings us to the latest Australian anti-terror law, which passed the Senate last week. The Foreign Fighters Bill, which is aimed at preventing young Australians from joining ISIS, makes it illegal to publish advertisements or news reports that could help them recruit. So, is it now a crime for TV stations or websites to run those videos? Well, probably not, because it's only an offence if the video is procured by the provision or promise of money or any other consideration. But media law expert Michael Collins QC is still concerned the media might be caught.
Paying money to an overseas media organisation or agency in return for a licence to use footage, for example, would seem to be enough to trigger the offence.
The ISIS recruitment videos are available free on the net, but along with the latest Cantley video, which has been taken down by YouTube, they're also supplied by agencies like Storyful, to which media groups subscribe. So the potential is there for an offence to be committed. But there's a wider concern in the way the law is drafted. Terror law expert Professor George Williams told Media Watch,
It's the other consideration section which is key here. That makes it incredibly broad. It doesn't have to be money. It could be something else.
And Matthew Collins QC agrees this could be a problem.
Providing a bottle of water to a person who delivers raw footage could potentially fulfil this requirement. That means, in practice, a journalist could be caught by this law by doing very little beyond obtaining a story.
Now, we can't believe the government really wants to send journalists or editors to jail for 10 years for broadcasting such videos or exposing how terrorists recruit. And last week, Attorney General George Brandis tried to reassure the media by promising he would have to approve any legal action and adding,
There is no possibility, no practical or foreseeable possibility that in our liberal democracy a journalist would ever be prosecuted for doing their job.
But if that's the case, why has the government passed 2 anti-terror laws that allow it? And why does it now have a third on the blocks that will make it much harder for journalists to protect their sources? The journalist union, the MEAA, said in a statement last week,
With each tranche over the past 3 months, the government has trampled on press freedom, denied freedom of expression, and curtailed the right to freedom to access information.
The third and perhaps most worrying tranche of these terror laws, the Data Retention Bill, will force phone and internet companies to retain your metadata for 2 years. This metadata can give police a complete record of who you talked to and where you went, and it can be obtained without a warrant, and it need have nothing at all to do with terrorism. We think it will make it unsafe for journalists and whistleblowers to tell the public what the powerful are doing. And according to the MEAA, it will result in
fewer people speaking out, and the public left with nothing but government spin, media stunts, and government agencies free from scrutiny.
Pressure is now mounting from the media and the opposition for a review of the new terror laws, and lawmakers need to take notice. And still on the subject of the law, it's turning into one of those shows, isn't it? Let's turn again to invasions of privacy and the front page of last Wednesday's NT News.
Nova's sex scandal.
Exclusive. Bombshell allegations against NT's Olympic superstar and PM's captain's pick senator.
A week after Professor Barry Spur sued online site New Matilda for publishing his racist and offensive emails, former star athlete and current NT Senator Nova Peris has suffered an even more embarrassing intrusion. The crux of the NT News' exclusive, which was also front-page news in Sydney's Daily Telegraph and Adelaide's Advertiser, was the allegation that back in 2010, before she became a senator,
Nova Peris sought taxpayers' money to help her to carry out an extramarital sexual tryst with Olympic medalist Atto Bolden.
The NT News' special investigation went on to reveal a series of salacious sexual emails between Peris and the Trinidadian sprinter. Most do not bear republishing, but here is one of the milder ones.
Atto, tell me, babe, what you want. Make a bit of money and spend time together. I will take time off from work to be with you.
Bolan quickly hit back on social media, claiming the article contained gross fabrications and malicious misrepresentation and threatening legal action. And next day in Parliament, Nova Peris also came back fighting.
The excuse for the reports is a claim I was responsible for a misuse of public funds. This claim is baseless. Mr. President, I categorically reject any wrongdoing. I have done nothing wrong.
Peris told the Senate the emails had been part of an attempt to blackmail her during a long-running custody dispute going back to 2012. And it's been confirmed she complained to police about them.
The release and publication of these emails in an attempt to extract money and embarrass me and my family. With legal options now exhausted, this other party has turned to the media. I can inform the Senate the Northern Territory News was well aware these emails were part of a long-running family dispute ahead of its publication.
Despite the Senator's response, the NT News has refused to back down, saying in a statement,
"We stand by the story, which deals with a matter of public importance, namely the alleged misuse of taxpayer funds."
The NT News has also maintained the emails were 100% legitimate, obtained from a credible source, and
a crucial element of the story and the situation.
But does anyone agree? Well, some do. We asked a number of editors if they would have published the Nova Peris story, and a couple said they would, with former Herald Sun editor-in-chief Phil Gardner telling MediaWatch,
"From what I have seen and heard, these stories would appear to pass the public interest test. Those who hold public office or have access to taxpayer funds or are co-opted to formulate public policy should and must always expect scrutiny."
Gay Alcorn, former editor of the Sunday Age, also said there was enough to question whether taxpayer funds might have been misused. But she told us she would not have published the emails if they were accessed illegally, and would only have published
the elements relating to suggestions she sought public funds, not the intimate details of her relationship.
But former Age editor Michael Gowenda was adamant he would have spiked it.
Unless there was more evidence to suggest that she had somehow managed to get funding in some sort of corrupt way, there is no such evidence in the story.
And he added,
"None of this coverage of her private life is even remotely in the public interest."
Amanda Wilson, ex-editor of the Sydney Morning Herald, agreed.
"I would not have run the original story. Based on what I have read, Peris was not responsible for any funding decisions."
And as to whether it was in the public interest, as the NT News had argued, Wilson said,
"No, it is not. Their real justification was the public will be very interested, so this will sell."
As for Peris's chances of taking legal action against the NT News, privacy lawyer Michael Rivette says she could have strong grounds.
They are private emails between two individuals relating to personal relationships. They are clearly classic confidential information.
And, says Rivette, it would be hard to argue a public interest defence, even if the court were prepared to accept one.
The Northern Territory News have said it's a matter of public importance, namely the misuse of taxpayer funds. Who has alleged it other than them? As I read it, the services were performed for Athletics Australia, and they were happy with the services.
Finally, there would be big problems justifying publication of the more salacious emails. Echoing Amanda Wilson, Rivette says,
"It's very important to differentiate between what the public is interested in and what is in the public interest. It's not about what sells papers."
So, is the Nova Peris case more clear-cut than Professor Barry Spurs? Most of the editors and lawyers we spoke to reckon it is. But so far, she's not said she will sue. The NT News will surely be hoping she does not. And you can read full responses from those editors on our website, where you can also get a transcript and download the programme. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or MediaWatch on Twitter. But until next week, that's all from me. Goodbye.